Today would be a good time if anybody has a question on this, because what you're going to see in this video has been alarming to a lot of people because of what I did here. And people have commented on what was I thinking. So this will help you know what I was thinking. And if you have any questions when we get through with this, this would be a good time to call. So
all right,
let's see it. Well, for those who are viewing this, we are located in the Salt Lake City Cemetery, and just behind me is the stone that has my parents' name on it, my mother and my father, and all of the children's names are on the back side of it. My father, who was Joseph Fielding Smith, and my mother, Ruth Pingree. Daddy was born in the 1800s. My baby sister used to take great joy in telling her little playmates that her father was born in the last century. So he was born in 1899, my mother in 1907. Daddy died in 64 and my mother in 92. So Daddy died way too long. He just turned 65 when he died. And my mother lived until she was 92, so she was 85. Terrific parents, actually. My father made us responsible for ourselves. Something happened to me. It was an incredible moment in my life as I look back on it. I was probably maybe 15, and I asked my father if I could do a particular thing, and he said, well, I rather you wouldn't, but it's entirely up to you. And I thought, oh, crap. That makes me totally responsible. I can't even remember what it was, but I didn't do whatever it was. But I've thought about that a lot in the years since, because he never took our monkeys that were ours. He just kept them on our own back. So I could never, say, well, you're responsible. I had to be responsible for everything that I did. It was my responsibility. And he raised us. We were raised like that, to be responsible for what we did, what we said, what we ever. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for my parents. I'm sorry my father died so young, because he was only 65, and right now I'm nearly 83. When I think of them that much older than my father when he died, it's stunning to me. 65 seems awfully young to me at this point. Back more than 3 decades ago, I learned that the person who was in charge of who got to be buried here died, and that responsibility had been given over to my Aunt Margaret, who was one of my father's sisters. For some reason I did not know at all and understand at the time, I became obsessed with getting a plot in the Salt Lake Cemetery, which seems like a crazy thing to do because I was really a lot younger and it was going to be a long time before I would need it. But I can only describe it as an obsession to get it. And so I contacted my aunt, and she was in the hospital at the time, and things were a little bit iffy, how she was going to be doing. And if she died before I was able to get a plot. So anyway, I went to the hospital to talk to her about it. And she was very gracious. And she told me there was only one plot left in the Smith family plot, that just one left. And looking into the legalities of everything, she learned that in order for me to do that, I would have to have the permission of all of my siblings. Well, at that time, most of them, all but one, was married already. And my sister already is on a stone in Denver. She and her husband have put up a long time before he died. And so all it takes is her death date, and that's where she'll be buried. And one of my brothers in southern Utah has a family plot there, and none of my siblings were going to look after this for them. And so I was able to get the plot, and I had to sign the papers, pay for it, and all of these things. and got that taken care of a long, long time ago. And I put it away in my little lock box in my bedroom and really just forgot about it. But for some reason, it gave me great peace of mind to know that it was there for me, because I was single then and I was older than some people thought I should be before I got married. So I had this plot. And I was in California, and I moved back to Utah in 1978. And I thought, well, maybe I will die here, and it really is a good idea that I have that plot. I have to jump to 27. And in 27, I learned about the sealed portion. Started reading it, and eventually met Christopher. And we had I don't even remember the conversation we had about the cemetery. I don't remember how I talked to him about my plot here. I just don't remember any of that, how it actually transpired. He talked to me about the possibility of having that particular plot. Since it was the last one, there are no more plots available here, to do what he wanted to do. And over the years, I had gotten further and further to the idea of, I don't want to be buried. I have really taken pretty good care of myself. I think that the inside of me is in really, really good condition. And I had gone to a thing at the library, next to the library, several years ago, showing dead bodies and all of the internal things from dead bodies. And it was a riveting thing to walk through. There was one particular place where they had different shades of lungs of people who had died, some who smoked, some who didn't, etc., and in livers and in kidneys and what they looked like in different bodies. And I thought I could see what a dreadful one looked at and could see what a really healthy one looked like. And I thought, I think I would like to give my body to the University of Utah, so that those kids who were, those 20-somethings who were trying to become doctors, could have an experience of looking at what an inside of a dead body looks like if it's been taken care of. And I thought, that's what I'd like to do with my body. And so when Christopher talked about this possibility, I said, I think that's a great idea. Because I was thrilled that we would do this for Hiram and what we have done to this. So I said yes, that would be fine. So we came together to the cemetery here, and we had to go through changing the ownership and etc. And we did everything that we had to do to make this all legal and everything. And then he put me in charge of having it happen. I said, okay, I'd never been in charge of putting anything together, but that meant I had to kind of determine what the stone would look like, how big it would, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he gave me information that needed to go on it. And in a few moments, we'll go on both sides of that so you can see what is on both sides of that. There's a young man that helped me with that, and he wanted it done by a certain time, and then I had to figure out just exactly how it would get paid for and whatnot, people who would donate to getting the thing done. And so I spent a lot of time up here then with drawings and suggestions and what exactly the kinds of things we want on it and whatnot. And I decided I wanted to have the plates on it. And so I worked with a outfit south of me in Utah County. Went out there and he did several different drawings because I wanted it 3D. I wanted not just a picture of it, but 3D. And he showed me a work they had done in metals. And we were excited about that so that we could have that on this. And then decide, okay, what's the decorations going to be and it's all this other stuff. So there were a lot of trips up here, down south, to get the information, go to get the plates, and et cetera, et cetera. And finally we did have the thing up and ready, and it was dedicated. And so then I came up, and there was a large group that was here when it was dedicated. It was a day not unlike this one. Cool, starting to rain. We were glad we had coats on. But that's why this monument is here. That's why. Now, a lot of people have not been happy about this monument. I'm sure the church was very upset about it. We were concerned about vandalism, yeah. And we have had that. At one point, not long after it had been put in, there was a group that came with chains and everything, pulled the thing over. And it had to be reset, and it goes down deep, so it was a lot to pull it over. And they did damage, but it was put back. And so a lot of people have come to see it and wondered, I'm sure, and very stressful to a lot of people, and feel that it's just a horrible thing to have been done. But at that point in time, I had, of course, read the sealed portion. I believe very, very strongly that indeed Christopher, I hate to use the word incarnation, because when you understand exactly why we have so many different lives, and that Joseph knew we had many different lives, it made sense to me. And but not everybody has felt that way. So missionaries coming by, I'm sure, have been horrified and wondered, and a lot of people have been very, very angry. But after that one major thing, they tried to destroy it. It's been pretty much left alone. But that's why this is here, and I did have a hand in it. I did, and my family wasn't very happy about it, but it happened. And I'm not sorry that it happened, because I think if people walk by here and you can look at the bottom of the stone, and it even gives you where you can go on the internet to get information about it. And I don't know that there are too many stones that have email addresses on them, but this one does. And so if anybody is interested and really sincerely wants to know more information about it, it's very accessible. And you get on there and you Google Marvelous Work and a Wonder, or thesealedportion.com, and you can find information all about this stone and why it's where it is. The more I learned about the Marvelous Work and a Wonder over the last number of years, 6 years, I've learned that nobody's going to be preaching the gospel of this to anybody. When you read the Book of Mormon, it talks about the marvelous work and a wonder, and that we're going to get it. We're going to get the real truth, but it's not going to be handed to us on a platter. Anybody that gets it is going to have to go after it for themselves. And if you go to Isaiah 29, particularly in Joseph Smith's translation of the Bible, in Isaiah 29, and you go to the Book of Mormon, where both of these things talks about the marvelous work and a wonder, that it is going to be available in the latter days, and we ultimately learned that the final truth about that would be given to the world in 2012. But it's not going to be in headlines, it's not going to be on NBC or CBS or whatever. It's there, but you have to look for it. It's like if the kids are going on a treasure hunt, and there are all kinds of things out there that can guide you to it, but you have to find it for yourself. And so the scriptures tell us that. You have to find it for yourself. You go to Ether 4, and it's very specific about when it would happen. It tells us in Ether 4 that after we have the sealed portion, which means we would have the entire gold plates. Then, right after that, very short period after that, we would get John's explanation of Revelations. Nobody in the world for 2,000 years has known what the Billy Hill he was talking about. Only John knew what he was talking about. And because nobody knew ever what he was talking about, it came through pretty much the way John wrote it, which is terrific. But nobody knew what it meant. So after that book was published, it said, then you will get John's explanation of the Revelation. Then, after that, there will be more books. More books. So, okay, here are all of these ways of finding the prize, finding the marvelous work and a wonder, which is the prize we're after, because we're after real truth. But if you think that if any person thinks that they already have all the truth there is, they'll never find it because they aren't looking for it. You've got to look for it. You've got to go after it yourself. And you think, I've got all the truth that there is to have. Why would you ever find it? Because you wouldn't be looking. In other words, people have got to be looking for real truth in order for them to find it. It will not be handed on a silver platter without something that they're going to do to work to get it. So all of that makes sense to me. And if I've heard it once, I've heard it 100 times. Do not preacher. It's not your job. There is a true messenger on the planet. It's his job. He will do that. You are not supposed to do it. You're not called to do that. There will be no group, no church organized. It's something that people have to get for themselves. So by having this thing behind me here, this crazy monument to Hiram Smith and ultimately to Christopher, people come along here and they think, is this part of the puzzle? Is this something I should really be looking into? How somebody can come by and look at this and not be, gee, I'd like to know what this is all about. Some people just see it and get mad instead of thinking, maybe there's something here, maybe I should look into this. If they do that, as I said, it's on there, what they can Google to get information. And when you Google sealportion.com, you'll find it. Or the marvelous work and a wonder, you'll find it. And then all you have to do, read the books, read the information. But you have to keep in mind that when Joseph and Hiram were in the jail, just before they were killed, they'd been there for a while, but there were two other individuals with them. And when the mob came and they started shooting and coming up the stairs and whatnot, Joseph knew he was going to be killed. He had not wanted Hiram to be with him then, but Hiram refused to leave him. He said, I'm not going to leave you. There's no way. And so just before Joseph was shot and killed, he made the statement that is on this, that has been put on this monument. The two men who were left alive after the shooting was over heard what was said. And when the Quorum of the 12 got together later, and Brigham Young came home from one of his missions and heard what had been said, because it says, in the Carthage, Illinois jail on June 27, 1844, in the presence of Willard Richards and John Taylor, and just a few moments before Joseph and Hiram Smith were murdered, Joseph smiled upon his older brother, took Hiram's right hand in his right hand, and said the following, one day it shall be you who shall finish what I could not. May the Lord's work be cut short in the righteousness of what you will do for the Father. I love you, my brother, my friend. With that prophecy, the resurrected Joseph Smith, Jr. returned to the earth on June 16th, 1987. And with further instructions to him then, reincarnated Brother Hiram, who was born into this world as Christopher Mark Nemelka, to commence the, quote, work of the Father, quote, known among the inhabitants of this world as the marvelous work and a wonder. Because Brigham Young saw that, and I thought, wait a minute, Hiram's dead. How can he possibly do it? He's dead. And so Brigham decided that maybe that meant that his posterity would do that. And so immediately Brigham Young went to Emma, not to Emma, but to Mary, and convinced her of this, and convinced her that she and her children should come west with him. Emma didn't know about this until later, and it caused a rift between those two families that was horrendous. It breaks my heart when I think about it, because there were no two brothers ever closer than Hiram and Joseph. They were inseparable, and to separate those families in that manner. So all of Hiram's children came west. Emma and her children did not come west. And the schism between those two families lasted for a very, very long time. Because it wasn't until the 1970s, more than 150 years later, were serious attempts made to bring those two families back together. And it's taken a while, because the hate has been so deep and so broad. And I mentioned before that when I was growing up, I was very much aware of how many people said very negative things about Emma because she didn't come west. And Emma was pregnant with her last child when he was killed. And she was in no condition to go west at that point. But there was no love lost between Emma and Brigham Young. And so none of Joseph's family came. And it wasn't until more than 150 years later before even one single descendant of Joseph's came into the LDS Church. So this has been taken over the last 40 years, about not quite 40 years. They've been trying to put those two families back together again. And just this last year, we had a reunion with those two families in Salt Lake, which is great. But there was a long, long time when they were separated. And of course, Brigham Young didn't understand what it was how Joseph could say this. But the Church Archives has this information because those apostles knew Joseph said that before he died. They also know that there are too many stories that people have written in the early years when Joseph talked about multiple lives. The church does not teach that, but Joseph referred to eternal lives, plural. Even as a teenager, I asked anyone, I said, why do they say multiple lives instead of multiple life? I didn't understand then, and it was a long time before I found out, okay, that's why that makes sense, and it does make sense. And so for this particular monument to have the writing on it that it does makes enormous sense to me. And I have no regrets for what I did in seeing to it that it was put up. And I know the church is not happy with it, and I know my family wasn't happy with it. But it's truth. It's real truth. And at this point in my life, I really don't want to deal with anything that isn't real truth. If real truth is on the earth, dagnabbit, that's what I want. And so that's where we're at. And that's why this is here. That's why this monument is here. And that's why I am here sitting today to tell you about it. How it came about, why I had that particular plot. Because when I did that, I didn't know why I was driven to get it. But the moment that Christopher talked to me about it, I thought, that's why I had to do that. And I think now, because of what I know that I didn't know before, about my own essence and who we really are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I think my essence was just on my case to get that. And I listened because it didn't make sense to me, but I thought, I'm so driven to it, I have to do it. So I'm glad I did. So that's why all of this business right here. Because there's no missionary work being done whatsoever by the Marvelous Work and the Wonder group with Joseph's descendants, I have no idea what any of those descendants know, because a lot of them have joined the church now. There have been quite a few who have joined the church now. And this summer when they were having the reunion, I desperately wanted to go and just shout from the rooftops, read Joseph's book. Read Joseph's book so you get his real, really what happened with Joseph Smith. So to my knowledge, none of his descendants have learned about it. None that I have heard. That's not that no one has, but I am not aware of any of them that have learned about it. Hopefully someday, if they would just read Joseph's biography, they would get exactly what happened, because Joseph, before he died, had said, "No man knows my history." And so his descendants have no idea what Joseph was all about. All of the biographies that have been written by Joseph since that time have been taken from people's different journals and whatnot. But since nobody in Joseph's lifetime knew anything about what he was doing and why he was doing about it, there's a big black hole there as far as getting information to Joseph's descendants. And since there will be no missionary work to them from the Marvelous Work and a Wonder, if they are wondering enough and they still want to keep looking and looking and looking, they'll find it, but only when they want it themselves. Anyway, this is a very nice cemetery, and it's very peaceful. And since there are so many prophets who are buried in this general vicinity, and certainly a lot of the Smiths, people who come by here, it's right on the road there, and see this, and don't take the opportunity to find out what in the world is this all about, we'll be held responsible for it, because we are all responsible for what we do, what we believe, what we learn. And we know now that we'll have to make the decision, because nobody's going to be knocking on our doors. And before we came down here, we knew that we were going to be coming to this crazy game of mortality, and that when we come down here, we would not remember who we were, because we wouldn't have memories from before. And so that we would be, us to find, okay, how are you going to handle things when you can't remember, when you just can't remember? Well, the temple ceremony for the LDS Church kind of wrote this all out for us. Basically, we knew we were going to lose our memories when we came down here. And so we were very concerned, because after we had watched what people do in other worlds, and see what horrible, horrible things they were doing to each other. And we would say things to our mother like, we would never behave that way. We would never do those horrible things. And our mothers would just smile. She said, we'll see, we'll see. And so we were concerned that I said, okay, when we get through with all of this mortality thing this dig that we're gonna go into, before Christ comes to us at the end of that period of time, please, can we be absolutely sure that we will be given real truth? Yes. You will be given real truth, because then we can, find it and everything will be wonderful. But if it is on the earth and we don't find it, that's our responsibility, because it'll be our responsibility to find it before Christ comes. Now's the time. Real truth has been on the earth officially since June of 2012. We have until 2145 before the Savior comes again, and we have maybe a couple more incarnations to do that. But it's here now, and if somebody really, really wants to be sure, look for it, take the hint, and do it for yourself. So on the top it says, in memory of the, quote, one like unto the Son of Man, quote. And this is the quote. And I looked and beheld a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. That's Revelations 14:14-20. Hiram Smith and Christopher Nemelka. And on the bottom, translator of the sealed portion of the gold plates. And then a website, for crying out loud. There it is. Now, if somebody comes by and looks on both sides of this, I don't know how it's possible for somebody to not want to look into it further. I mean, here's the opportunity. It's right there. How can they possibly get away with this? How can they say this if it isn't true? And if somebody with a desire to know the truth, with real intent, doesn't make an effort to find out if this is true or not, it's their responsibility. Because we have our free agency. It's possible for us to do it, whatever we want to do. And if we want the truth, we can go after it. Nobody's impeding us from going after truth if we really, really want it. It's available. It's easy to get. All of the books that are on this thing down here, this sealedportion.com, all of the books are there for free. You can download them. If you want to have a copy that you can mark up and have in your hands like I had to do, it's possible to do that. But if you can't, you can read it online, line upon line, line upon line. It's free, as all truth should always be free to everybody equally. So here it is. The opportunity's there. All you have to do is read the books.
All right. Well, that
Whoa.
was. You were there.
I was there.
I was there.
I'm really glad to have seen this today, because if you had asked me a half an hour after we got through filming it and asked me what I had said, I'm not sure I could have told you.
Yeah.
So thanks to Tony and putting it all together.
Yeah.
But it's all true.
It's incredible.
And it's available to anybody, and it's free of charge. So go after it.
This is what it looks like if you want to get it in book form. But it's free online, so you can download it online and read it from your computer or your iPad or anything that you have.